Happy summer, ECC members and friends. I'm Steve Verhey, the chair of the Environment and Climate Caucus of the Washington State Democrats. This mid-year update is really long, so I'm trying something a bit different to make it easier to digest, and you're looking at or listening to it. The newsletter has a lot of links, and I will mention them by number as I go along and then put the links in the info section on YouTube. At least that's the plan. So, here goes. In this issue, you should get all your friends to join ECC, and you should join ECC's executive board. There's a call for resolutions and information about the July and August meeting schedule. We are going to have a special guest at our July meeting, Shasti Conrad, the chair of the Washington State Democratic Central Committee. There's a notice of executive board between meeting action and 5 items of executive board news. First, a Forest Service letter from the Oregon Democratic Party that we're considering signing. Second, the Lower Snake River Dam, and I'm forming a committee to look at transportation in that area. Third, a nuclear power update, and I'm forming a committee to look at the state platform in that area. Fourth, ultra-high-speed rail. Fifth, lead in aviation fuel. And finally, just as I was finishing writing the newsletter, an email came from the state party that I'm going to talk about at the end. So first, you should get all your friends to join ECC. Who doesn't love geeking out about climate, transportation, and energy policy? That's what we do at ECC, and we're looking to continue to grow our membership, especially in rural areas. Washington residents can join ECC with a dues waiver at link 1 or by paying dues at link 2. It's a sliding scale with $20 recommended, but we don't really need the money, so either join for no dues or whatever you can afford. New members do need to join 30 days before being eligible to vote at a meeting. If you're already a member, you can look in the emailed version of the newsletter and see what email address we have for you on file. If you don't see an email address in there, then you're not currently a member. In addition to growing our membership, we would like to offer our members opportunities to engage to a greater extent. In this newsletter, I'm going to try to give you a sense of the kind of things ECC's executive board gets up to in hopes of making you interested in joining the e-board. At the bottom of this email, or at the bottom of the email, you can find a list of our current e-board members. We have 2 vacancies, one for Eastern Washington Vice Chair, and the other one more sort of at large. Feel free to nominate yourself or nominate somebody else. You can email me at verheys, that's verheys, @hotmail.com if you're interested. Like I said, I'm also forming 2 committees that you might like to join that I'll talk about later. Here's a call for resolutions and information about the July-August membership meetings. Link 3 will take you to our calendar with meeting dates and deadlines. ECC's summer 2023 membership meetings will be on July 20th and August 24th, the 3rd and 4th Thursdays, respectively. This is because some people have local party organization meetings on one or the other date, and this will hopefully allow everyone to attend at least one ECC meeting with minimal conflicts. One of ECC's most effective approaches to fostering change has been the use of resolutions, and it's yet another way for you to get involved with ECC by submitting resolutions for the membership to consider and possibly pass on to the state party for them to consider. Resolutions passed by ECC, whether or not they're subsequently adopted by the Washington State Democratic Central Committee, are useful conversation starters with legislators and a good way to help rank-and-file party members become aware of issues. The state party's rules require resolutions to be submitted 30 days in advance of meetings, and the next Central Committee meeting is September 30th, probably in Spokane. This is the only state Central Committee meeting before the legislature convenes on January 8th, so it's a good opportunity for resolutions that might address certain pieces of legislation. ECC's rules at link 4 require resolutions to be submitted 14 days before our meetings, but we greatly prefer to have resolutions earlier when possible. There is a mechanism for so-called urgent resolutions at the state level. To submit a resolution to ECC, use the template at link 5 and email your resolution as an attachment or a link to me, verhis@hotmail.com, with a copy to Resolutions Chair Angie Hamola, numeral 2, that's ANGIEHOMOLAD, numeral 2, at gmail.com. The deadline for resolutions to be considered at our July meeting, that's on July 20th. The deadline is Thursday, July 6th. The deadline for our August meeting, the meeting is on August 24th. The deadline is Thursday, August 10th. We're happy to help you craft your resolution. Just let me know, again, at my email address, verhis@hotmail.com. Special July meeting guest, WSDCC Chair Shasti Conrad. We are excited to have Shasti Conrad, who was elected in January to lead the State Democratic Party, join us for our July 20th meeting. Shasti is the most highly qualified chair we've had, really, just read her bio at link 6, possibly ever, and I would be remiss if I did not include a link to support the party and her efforts. Link 7 will take you to the Washington State Democrats Act Blue page to donate. Here's a notice of between meeting action by the Executive Board on a Democratic Party of Oregon letter. Last year, in an effort to make ECC better able to respond to opportunities to support organizations and actions that share our mission but have tight deadlines for responses, we adopted rules at link 8 to allow us to take action between meetings in certain cases. Under the rules, we let our membership know when action has been taken, and that's what I'm doing here. The Democratic Party of Oregon's Environmental Caucus, which is our counterpart in the Beaver State, is seeking signers for 2 letters, one to the Bureau of Land Management and one to the Forest Service, with comments on the 2 agencies regarding their rulemaking. You can read the BLM letter at link 9. In both of these cases, our rules require an affirmative vote of more than 2/3 of Executive Board members, and our decision was to sign the BLM letter. However, when we were discussing the Forest Service letter, which you can read at link 10, and which has a deadline that's a little bit later than for the BLM letter, but is still before our next membership meeting, during our discussions, it was pointed out that the Washington State Democratic Party supports through its platform, see lines 658 to 661 at link 11, increasing jobs in our rural timber communities to strengthen our forests for wildfire, to use sustainable forest biomass from forestry thinning to make renewable products through the manufacture and use of advanced engineered wood products, and in the best forest management practices to realize the full potential of carbon capture. The Democratic Party of Oregon letter currently calls on the Forest Service to 1. Identify carbon sequestration as each national forest's primary goal, and 2. To recognize and avoid mass-scale use of woody biomass as a carbon emission source. Use of woody biomass is not carbon neutral and should not be incentivized. The E-Board is leaning towards signing this Forest Service letter, but we'd appreciate your input. What do you think? Is the letter at odds with our platform? How would or do timber-focused parts of the state feel if we signed the letter? Feel free to reply to this email or write to me directly, verhis@hotmail.com. Next up, lower Snake River dams. On June 26th, ECC member Jim Conca and I went to a field hearing of the House Committee on Natural Resources. This is the U.S. Congress Committee on Natural Resources at Richland High School. And I appreciated the chance to get caught up a little on some of the issues relating to the Lower Snake River Dams, or LSRD. There were 4 members of Congress present: Cliff Bentz from Oregon Congressional District 2, Mike Collins from Georgia's 10th Congressional District, Dave Newhouse from Washington's 4th, and Kathy McMorris Rogers from Washington's 5th Congressional District. Only Bentz and Collins are actual members of the committee, but the event was organized by Newhouse and McMorris Rogers. Unfortunately, Representatives Newhouse and McMorris Rogers are doing all they can to politicize the issue of keeping or removing the LSRD, and the way the hearing was marketed, like, quote, congressional hearing on the importance of defending our dams, and, quote, the Northwest at risk, the environmentalists' effort to destroy navigation, transportation, and access to reliable power, that made us think that we would find the hearing stacked in favor of dam proponents. And it was, of course, but everyone should take the time to listen to the testimony from Jen Kwan, the West Coast Regional Administrator of the National Marine Fisheries Service and NOAA, at link 12. I went away convinced that, while it may be possible to keep salmon species from going extinct while keeping the dams, stronger action is needed to have what Ms. Kwan called healthy and harvestable salmon runs. NOAA's 2022 report, Rebuilding Interior Columbia Basin Salmon and Steelhead, at link 13, explains what else is needed beyond dam removal. And Ms. Kwan did stress that dam removal alone is not enough. You may be interested in the latest ECC eBoard email string about this issue, which happened just before and just after the hearing. The email string starts with, at the bottom, my perspective on the dams as someone who grew up in and lives in eastern Washington, and ends with, at the top, thoughts from Don Schwerin, chair of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Caucus. In between is my slightly more spicy and complete report of the hearing to the eBoard. You can find the email string at link 14. As I wrote in my report, Democrats built those dams for the reason Democrats do things: to help people. Democrats won't remove the dams unless the services they provide are replaced with something even better, and we better get started. The 2 most difficult issues in LSRD removal are replacing the low-cost transportation for agricultural products and replacing the cheap low-carbon electricity the dams produce. I'm hearing from our rail team that the basics are already in place to replace barge transportation with rail transportation, and I'm looking for members to join a committee to distill and communicate rail transportation opportunities in Southeast Washington. Significant work has already been done on this by Bill Moyer at Solutionary Rail and by ECC board member Tom White. See link 15 for Solutionary Rail's website and more information. And please reply to this email or write to me directly at verhayes@email.com if you would like to join this committee and or learn more about the issue. Now, nuclear power. Last summer, ECC released a report called Nuclear Power: Is It Necessary? Is It Safe? And What About the Waste? You can find it at link 16. That summer, the Washington State Democratic Party adopted a platform, which you can find at link 17, and in lines 817 to 818, the platform calls for an analysis of, quote, whether reliance on decades-old nuclear reactors costs consumers far more than available carbon-free electricity that does not add to Washington's waste and contamination burdens or pose catastrophic risks as they age well beyond original licensing. As with rail transportation, ECC has significant expertise in this area, and I'm looking for members to join a committee to perform the analysis called for by the 2022 platform. Please reply to this email or write to me directly at verhis@hotmail.com if you would like to join this committee and or learn more about this issue. Ultra-high-speed rail. The e-board and ECC members continue to track this issue, which is a favorite of the tech industry, the governor, and some in the legislature. So far, ECC has been clear in its position that we need to improve our current passenger rail system and spend Climate Commitment Act funds on actual climate mitigation and adaptation, and that these things can be accomplished on a timescale of years, not decades, unlike the ultra-high-speed rail project. ECC has not opposed the ultra-high-speed rail project, but I think it's fair to say skepticism continues to grow. On January 20th, the Washington State Legislature's Joint Transportation Committee received a report called the Independent Review of Cascadia Ultra-High-Speed Rail Draft Final Report, which you can see at link 18, and there was a summary called the Cascadia Ultra-High-Speed Rail Independent Review Study Summary of Findings, which you can find at link 19. Based on the independent report, it appears the previous Washington Department of Transportation plans and reports have overestimated in a number of areas that are favorable to the project and underestimated in areas that would threaten the project. The findings generally support what our members have been saying about ultra-high-speed rail, that it would be too expensive, too slow to get off the ground, and not really a good use of limited time and money at a time of climate crisis when the state is neglecting opportunities to significantly improve the rail transportation we have. Around the world, successful bullet trains have followed the development of extensive rail transportation systems, not led them. ECC has taken action on lead in aviation gas before. It turns out that there is still lead in one type of fuel, avgas, the type of fuel used in small planes, even though there are FAA-approved lead-free alternatives that work in and are better for almost all engines. There was a bill in the state legislature earlier this year that would have required lead-free avgas, but it was diluted and eventually died in committee. The bill will be considered again in the next session, but it may be that local approaches could succeed where a statewide approach is difficult. If you live near a small airport with lots of prop plane traffic, you're being exposed to lead. Many airports are publicly owned, and so there are local mechanisms to educate citizens and officials about this issue. Link 20 will take you to a folder of resources that might be useful if you decide to pursue this locally. And finally, this just in from the Washington State Democratic Central Committee. Here's exclusive early access. Washington State Democratic Central Committee has an advocacy committee which is tasked with promoting legislation that is consistent with WSDCC's platform and resolutions. Now I'm going to quote from the email that arrived as I was about to finalize this newsletter. Quote, every year the Advocacy Committee puts out a survey to get information from activists and party members on what is important to them ahead of the next legislative session in order to help craft the annual legislative priorities. You can find the 2023 priorities at link 21. This survey is invaluable for our organization to find out what is important for our supporters and work to make those priorities into law. The survey will be going out broadly early in July, but we wanted to get it to you all a little earlier and ask that you circulate it to your networks within your organizations. To fill out this survey, go to link 22. Okay, me again, and thanks for sticking with this for so long. Please do complete the survey at link 22. There is a question in there about the extent to which the legislature accomplished the WSDCC priorities in the 2023 session, so you might want to check out the 2023 priorities link at link 21 also, or you can just choose Don't Know in the survey. And at last, let me remind us all of our mission. Through research, education, outreach, and collaboration, the Environment and Climate Caucus, ECC, advocates for legislation and policy that protects the environment and supports effective responses to mitigate and adapt to climate change. We work with a diverse community of stakeholders, including other WSDC caucuses. And again, thanks for sticking around this long. I will try not to have the next newsletter be quite so long. Thanks again for sticking with me. Steve out.